She was invisible to every powerful man in that room. That's exactly why she saw everything. Alice had scrubbed blood off floors before. She worked in a hotel full of secrets. But the night she watched a woman in a red dress slide something into a crystal glass meant for the most dangerous man in Seoul, Alice made a choice that should have gotten her killed. It didn't. It started something far more terrifying than death. The Grand Seoul Imperial Hotel didn't hire Alice Mensa for her smile. They hired her because she was invisible. 27 years old, Ghanaian-born, naturalized in South Korea, after following her late mother's dream of building a life there. Alice moved through marble corridors with a mop and a cart like a ghost, silent, efficient, unseen. Guests walked past her without blinking. Security cameras caught her outline. Nobody ever looked twice. She preferred it that way. Her hands were calloused, but her eyes were sharp. 4 years cleaning the Imperial's most exclusive floors had taught her one thing. Powerful people always forget the help is watching. Tonight, the 12th floor was booked entirely. No guest names on the registry. Just a corporate code and a standing instruction from management. Clean fast, leave faster. Ask nothing. Alice knew what that meant. She'd seen it before. She pushed her cart quietly past the grand ballroom doors, stealing a glance through the thin gap. Crystal chandeliers, black suits, women draped in silk, a gathering so sharp and cold it could cut glass. At the center of the room stood a man who made the air feel different. Tall, dark suit, jaw like carved stone, eyes that moved slowly across the room the way a predator watches a field, not hunting yet, but always ready. She didn't know his name. She didn't need to. Men like that, Alice thought, always end up on the wrong side of something. She looked away and kept moving, but something made her slow near the drinks table just outside the ballroom entrance. A woman in a red dress stood there, back half turned, fingers reaching into her clutch. Alice froze. Nobody else was looking. The woman in the red dress didn't know she had an audience. She moved like someone who had rehearsed this moment 100 times. Smooth, unbothered. Her fingers uncapped something small and dark. A vial, barely the size of a lipstick, and tilted it silently into a single crystal glass on the far end of the tray. One glass, deliberately chosen. Then she smiled, picked it up, and turned back toward the ballroom. Alice's chest locked. She just poisoned that drink. Her mop handle was still in her hands. Her cart was 3 feet behind her. Every rational thought screamed, "You are a hotel cleaner. You are nobody. Walk away." But her feet wouldn't move. Through the gap in the ballroom doors, she watched the woman in red glide across the floor, straight toward the stone-faced man in the black suit. He was mid-conversation, relaxed in the way only truly dangerous men are relaxed. Like nothing in the room could touch him. He has no idea. Alice moved before she decided to. She pushed through the ballroom door, heart hammering, cart abandoned, heads turned. A security guard near the entrance stiffened. She ignored all of it. She crossed the floor in 12 steps. The woman in red had just handed him the glass. He was raising it toward his lips, nodding at something someone said. "Don't drink that." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. The entire corner of the room went still. The man slowly lowered the glass. His eyes, dark, unreadable, terrifyingly calm, moved to her face. For the first time in 4 years at the Imperial Hotel, someone in that ballroom actually looked at Alice. Nobody moved. Not the guards, not the guests, not the woman in red, whose smile had frozen into something that no longer looked like a smile at all. Si-woo didn't speak immediately. He just looked at Alice, this woman in a gray uniform with calloused hands and a mop cart abandoned at the door, and something shifted behind his eyes. Not anger, not confusion, calculation. Who let staff in here? A guard stepped forward, hand already reaching for Alice's arm. "Wait!" Si-woo's voice was quiet, one word. The guard stopped like he'd hit a wall. Si-woo set the glass down slowly on a nearby tray. His eyes never left Alice's face. "Say that again," he said, low, almost private, like the rest of the room didn't exist. Alice swallowed. "The woman in the red dress. She put something in that glass from a small vial. I watched her do it." The woman in red laughed. Sharp, practiced. "This is absurd. She's the cleaning staff." "Where's the vial?" Si-woo asked. Still calm, still quiet. The woman's laugh faltered. 2 of Si-woo's men moved simultaneously. She stepped back. Her clutch was already open. Reflex. And that was enough. One of the men reached in, pulled out a small dark vial, still uncapped. The ballroom exhaled. The woman in red stopped pretending. Her eyes cut to Alice with something raw and vicious. "You have no idea what you just did," that look said. Alice believed her. Siwoo finally looked away from the woman in red and back to Alice. His expression was unreadable. "Your name," he said. "Alice," she whispered. He nodded once, like he was filing it somewhere permanent. They took Alice to a room on the 14th floor. Not roughly, not kindly, just efficiently. The way Siwoo's men did everything. A hand at her elbow, a closed door, a chair placed precisely in the center of a suite that cost more per night than her monthly salary. She sat in it anyway. Spine straight, hands folded. Don't show fear. Siwoo entered alone 3 minutes later. He'd removed his jacket, rolled one sleeve to the elbow. There was a thin scar running along his left forearm that looked old and deliberate. He sat across from her and studied her face, the way someone reads a document they don't fully trust. "You could have walked away," he said. "I know. Why didn't you?" Alice met his eyes. "Because you were about to die, and nobody else was looking." Silence. "The woman in red," he said carefully. "Did you know who she was before tonight?" "I don't even know who you are," Alice said flatly. Something moved at the corner of his mouth. Almost a smile. Almost. "And yet here you are." "Here I am," she agreed, voice dry. "Sitting in a room I definitely shouldn't be in, talking to a man I definitely shouldn't know. So if you could just confirm I'm not about to disappear, that would be great." This time he did smile. Brief, like sunlight through a closing door. "You're not in danger, Alice. You say that like you're certain." "I'm always certain." He leaned forward slightly. "But the woman you just exposed, she works for someone who will know your face by morning." Alice's stomach dropped. "Which means," Siwoo said quietly, "you can't go home tonight." They gave her a room 2 doors down. Alice didn't sleep. She sat at the window, watching Seoul's skyline bleed light into the dark sky, and thought about every decision that had led her to this chair, in this hotel, on this particular night. Her mother always said she had too much conscience for a quiet life. She was starting to agree. Around 2 a.m., there was a knock. She opened the door. Siwoo stood there. No jacket, no guards, holding 2 paper cups of vending machine coffee, like a man who had forgotten how normal people lived. He held one out. "You don't strike me as someone who sleeps easily. You don't strike me as someone who fetches coffee." "I don't," he said. "Usually." She took the cup. He leaned against the doorframe instead of entering, like he was respecting a boundary he didn't have to. "The vial," he said. "The lab confirmed it. Fast-acting sedative. Non-lethal alone." He paused. "But I was scheduled for surgery tomorrow morning. Blood thinners. Combined." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "Someone knew your medical schedule," Alice said quietly. "Someone close." His jaw tightened. "The woman in red, her name is Ji-Yun. She was my personal assistant for 3 years." Alice absorbed that. 3 years. Someone he trusted. "I'm sorry," she said, and she meant it. He looked at her, really looked, like the words had landed somewhere unexpected. "In my world," he said slowly, "people don't apologize for other people's sins." "In my world," Alice replied, "we do it anyway." Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable. Something else. Then Siwoo said, almost to himself, "Who are you, Alice?" She looked at her coffee cup. "I'm nobody," she almost said. But something stopped her. By morning, Siwoo's men had traced Ji-Yun to a private car registered under a shell company. The shell company led somewhere that made Siwoo go very, very still when Marcus, his head of intelligence, showed him the report. Alice was eating toast in the suite's small kitchen when Siwoo walked in and sat down across from her without being invited. She pushed the butter toward him automatically. He stared at it like he'd forgotten what breakfast looked like. "When did you last eat an actual meal?" she asked. "I don't remember." "That's not an answer." "No," he agreed. "It isn't." He picked up a slice of toast anyway. They ate in silence for a moment. Outside, Seoul was waking up. Delivery bikes, school children. A city that had no idea what had almost happened last night. "Can I ask you something personal?" Alice said. "You saved my life. You can ask me anything. Do you actually trust anyone?" He chewed slowly. Set the toast down. "I trusted Ji-Yun. That's not what I asked." He looked at her. That calculating gaze again. but softer now, like the lens had shifted slightly. "No," he said finally. "I don't." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." A pause. "Does that frighten you?" Alice considered him. This man who controlled rooms without raising his voice, who brought vending machine coffee at 2 a.m., who ate toast like he was learning it for the first time. "Honestly," she said, "you don't frighten me, Siwoo." He went very still. Nobody had said his name like that before. Like it was just a name, not a warning. The file arrived at noon. Siwoo's intelligence team had fully unraveled Ji-yeon's trail. The shell company, the payments, the handler coordinating everything from a secured location in Busan. Siwoo read the name at the bottom of the report. His face went completely blank. Park Dae-jung, his own uncle, the man who had raised him after his parents died, the man who had handed him leadership of the organization 7 years ago with both hands and said, "You are my blood. I trust no one else." His uncle had been trying to kill him. He sat alone in his suite for 40 minutes, didn't move, didn't speak. When Alice knocked and entered with coffee, she'd started doing that, quietly, naturally. She stopped the moment she saw his face. What happened? He slid the report across the table without speaking. She read it. Her face changed. "Siwoo, don't." His voice came out cracked at the edge. "Don't say you're sorry. Don't say anything soft right now, because I won't." He stopped. His jaw worked. "I can't." Alice set the coffee down. She didn't speak. She just sat beside him, close enough that their arms nearly touched. And she stayed there. That was worse somehow. The kindness of it. "Why are you still here?" he said, voice rough. "You're free to go. Ji-yeon is in custody. You're safe." "I know," Alice said quietly. "Then why?" "Because you brought me terrible vending machine coffee at 2 a.m., she said. "And nobody does that unless they're a little bit human." He looked at her. Something in his eyes broke open, just slightly, just enough. Then his phone rang. His uncle's name lit up the screen. Siwoo stared at the phone for a long time. Alice watched him. She didn't touch it. Didn't advise. This was his. 7 years of absolute control. 7 years of building something from blood and sacrifice because a man he loved had believed in him, and that man had just tried to erase him. He picked up the phone. "Uncle." "Siwoo." The old man's voice was warm, familiar, devastating. "How are you feeling after last night? I heard there was an incident." "I know," Siwoo said quietly. "I know everything." Silence. When his uncle spoke again, the warmth was gone. What remained was something ancient and cold. "You were never supposed to be permanent, boy. You were supposed to be manageable. I made you. I could unmake you." "You tried," Siwoo said. "Last night." He ended the call. His hands were steady, his face was stone, but Alice saw it. The slight tremor in his left hand, the one with the scar. "It's done," she asked. "His location is already flagged. My men will move within the hour." He set the phone down. "It's done." The room was very quiet. Then he turned to look at Alice fully, like he was seeing her without any armor for the first time. "When this is over," he said carefully, "when all of it is over, I want to find you. Not as a debt, not as protection." He paused. "As a choice." Alice felt something shift in her chest. "You don't know anything about me," she whispered. "I know you walked into a room full of the most dangerous men in Seoul," he said, "to save someone you'd never met." He held her gaze. "That's more than I know about most people I've known for years." Park Dae-jung was detained by dawn. The operation was quiet, surgical, the way Siwoo did everything. No chaos, no noise, just consequence. Alice heard about it through the hotel corridor the next morning, whispered between staff who had no idea she was connected to any of it. She changed 3 rooms, mopped 2 corridors, returned her cart to the supply room. Then she found an envelope tucked inside her locker. No name on the outside. Inside, a single card. Thick, cream paper. A phone number handwritten in careful strokes. And below it, 4 words. "You are not invisible." Alice stood in that supply room for a long time. She thought about her mother, about 4 years of gray uniforms and downcast eyes, about the night she'd pushed through a ballroom door on instinct and changed everything without meaning to. She thought about a man who brought terrible coffee at 2 a.m. She pulled out her phone. He answered on the second ring. "I got your note," she said. "I meant it." His voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. Something open in it. Something new. "Siwoo." She leaned against the cold metal locker. I'm a hotel cleaner from Ghana. You run half of Seoul's underworld. This is insane. Yes, he said simply. I should say no. Probably. A pause. She closed her eyes. I make better coffee than vending machines, she said finally. She heard him exhale, slow and quiet, almost like relief. Then let me find out, he said softly. Alice smiled. For the first time in a very long time, she felt entirely, dangerously seen. Alice walked into danger for a stranger, and found something she never expected. But here's the question that should keep you up tonight. Saiwoo's uncle said, you were never supposed to be permanent. So who put him in power, and why? Drop your theories below. The truth might surprise you.